I'm going to start with Zerlina. Zerlina, this African-American woman, strong as hell, confident as hell, and trained in this game, this reality TV game by guess who, is now taking on Mr. Reality TV and doing it in a way that has kept our attention on every medium, every newspaper, every broadcast TV show, every cable show. She has dominated now for almost a week. I think she's got some leg left, as we say in the business, a couple more days at least of dominating a week with no other big news. She seemed to have found a news hole in which to go to pugilistic warfare with the guy who taught her. Your thoughts?
I think that she's been very strategic from the beginning. I think that picking the month of August to put a book out in a slow summer news week was very smart. But also, if you think about it, think about just how many reality stars there are. There are a lot. And there are only a few that you can actually name them by just their first name, without even their last name, right? We know her as Omarosa. It's almost amazing to think that 15 years ago, she was on the first season of The Apprentice, and we still are talking about her today. So obviously she is doing something right. She's very media savvy. She has staffed other people to do interviews, and so that's why you see her prepared and on message in her interviews, and she knows their MO. So every single time they call her a liar, she presents a tape as receipts to say, nope, you're the liar.
You know, Katie, you're an expert as a reporter covering him. I think you're the best of reporters covering him. And yet you and I watched the inability of his natural political opponents to duke out with him. He would say you're low energy, and the guy would act low energy and sort of fade on him. He'd say, little Marco, and the guy started throwing water around. They seem to melt in front of his assault, whereas she delights in it. Hit me again. You know, come at me again, Mr. President. I got some tapes for you.
Yeah.
Keep at it. She wants this fight every day. Your thoughts?
You know, I would say Ashley Parker is the best Trump reporter. But in terms of Omarosa, she clearly knows his game because she studied under him, and she's very clearly prepared for whatever he may throw at her. But it does speak to the larger environment that Donald Trump creates when he is either leading an organization, a campaign, or a White House. It was the same in the campaign. He does inspire this blind loyalty, and we saw that from Omarosa when she was doing the campaign and when she was in this White House. She had nothing but praise for him. But at the same time, those people who are devoted to him, they do know that at some point when they no longer have anything to offer, they're no longer useful to him, they are aware that his loyalty toward them runs out. Once he doesn't need you any longer, he is more than willing to throw you under the bus. That is why people like Michael Cohen or Omarosa will say that they record conversations of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's why it's not unheard of. Not necessarily because you have to have a record of what he says, because you want to have a record of what you say as well, because you never know how he's going to misrepresent you.
And as a Peace Corps pal of mine once said, people don't mind being used, they mind being discarded. Yesterday, Trump lowered the clash with Omarosa, calling her a human being and fellow American a dog. Ashley, you reported today that longtime Trump observers say it's a measure of his rage and sense of betrayal that he called Manigault Newman that dog. The president has an aversion to dogs and other pets, considers canine comparisons to be among his most devastating put-downs. Whatever. But he did choose the word, and I think it hurt Trump as much as anything he's ever said, the word dog. It just diminished him. That's what I think.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And there was a lot of commentary that it was racist to call her a dog, but at the very least, even people who normally defend him kind of...
He doesn't call white guys dogs.
I think he calls a lot of...
Similes he does, but he never calls them dogs. So
there was that level of criticism, which is something that he's always grappling with. And even the people who say it's not racist, he insults everyone, said that this is not helpful language for him to be using. It's problematic, and it gives the White House another issue to grapple with when they're already dealing with the fallout of the book.
Well, let me talk about her as a pugilist. She has a face that's obviously attractive, but she has a face that dramatizes her thinking. Have you noticed? She has a dramatic face. And when she comes back, you must think, you're watching. Who wants to answer? Who wants to tackle this? Do you want to tackle it? Because I think you watch, you go, what's she thinking? What's she doing now? What's she going to do right now?
Well, she's a great reality television villainess. That's how she first appeared fully formed on The Apprentice in 2004. And this was something that then businessman Donald Trump loved about her. He was kind of curious how to become a celebrity. And he watched Omarosa do it. At that time, he was just a sideshow curiosity. You have to keep in mind the only point he has turned on her is when she has then turned those same skills back on him. But for a while, he sort of saw himself in her and admired some of those qualities.
David, tell us about Trump and his history with dealing with African-American women and also dealing with in-your-face competitors. This one seems to be bugging him. He's resorting to nickname a dog. That's worse than a nickname. He's comparing her to an animal, saying he's going to sue her for violation of some agreement back in the campaign. And now he's resorting to going after poor John Brennan to beat his head in to get even to change the subject. It just seems he's trying everything to loosen the grip she's got on him. David.
Well, she's played her cards extremely well, and I think she's playing a longer game than we're seeing. She's managed to be in the news for a week, but we may see things as she pops up in the future. After all, she got 15 years of fame out of Donald Trump's TV show.
She's back on the tour tomorrow, back on this network tomorrow. She's going to start again. You're right.
Yeah. And she's made it clear that she has lots of tapes. We don't know if those tapes go back to before the show. Before the show in the White House to the show. And she also has no controls on her except for what she sees as advancing her role. And I agree with the other guest as a villainous character. And in that, she very much is Donald's match. So he and other people in the White House should be deeply worried about what she's got and what she can spill on them from their own words.
Well, bigger question, wider aperture here. How can she do this so well when all the people that ran against Donald Trump, especially on the Republican side, not Hillary Rodham Clinton, she got in there late, but all those men that he ran against and women he ran against seem to be unable to take him on, much less take him down.
Well, I think, hold on, I'm going to answer this. I think she's, well, number one, she's trained under him. She's studied him. She's a version of him. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that she's going to be more successful than anybody else or that was on the campaign trail. Yes, she's hitting back very hard. But is she going to change the mind of anyone who voted for Donald Trump? I'm not so sure. I think that the version of Donald Trump that she is putting out there is the version of Donald Trump that everybody knows. And I also think that the president gives pretty easy cover for his supporters by painting her as a liar and as an opportunist. I'm not sure whose mind she changes.
Women in the suburbs do not want to vote for an out-and-out racist. Women I will just generalize, women in the suburbs
I'm just not sure what she's shown.
Don't want to vote for an out-and-out racist.
She has shown that we haven't already seen from the president himself on his Twitter feed or in the way he speaks about people, or we saw during the campaign. A lot of this is something, I mean, Omarosa has said some pretty spectacular things, including that the president knew about the WikiLeaks emails before WikiLeaks went out. I don't think calling him a racist or a misogynist is as surprising as a revelation like that.
Yeah, well, in her interview on The Daily Show, Omarosa said she'd been instructed by her lawyers not to give Trump more ammunition by giving him the attention he loves. Let's take a look.
There's one way to shut Donald Trump down, and that is to just don't give him the oxygen. And the oxygen comes from the clicks, the likes, the shock, the discussions.
Well, Axios reports that White House advisors have counseled the president to hold his tongue, noting several told him to ignore her and that engaging would only boost her book sales. Well, Trump said privately that First Lady Melania Trump had advised him to stay above it, but they know he wouldn't be able to resist. Well, today, one Fox News host suggests the president has been outplayed. Here he goes.
In order to sell a book, she's come out with a series of tapes and in many ways seems to have outsmarted the president, who's taken the bait and gone out and tweeted directly after her.
Well, Brian knows how to sell books. Anyway, let me get back to Ashley here. What do you think? I don't know. The reporting on Trump always amazes me. What you guys are able to do. You find out what Trump said to somebody as he's walking down the hallway. I don't know how you get this stuff. You guys laugh at when they say they're not going to leak anymore. How does somebody know that Trump said to somebody, Melania said to me, I shouldn't play her game? How do you find that out? This is tradecraft, I know.
Yeah, without getting into sources and methods. Look, there's a number of people in that West Wing, in that White House, who clearly talk to reporters. And another thing to keep in mind is the president talks to people. One thing, General Kelly came in, he tried to put these controls on the president. It didn't work. The president in the morning, late at night in the residence, at Bedminster, and Mar-a-Lago, he's calling friends, they're calling reporters.
Well, who else has thoughts here? Let me go back to David on this. Katie, I'm going to Katie on this. What do we know about the White House staff and the way they sort of kibitz about the fact of Trump and he's playing this wrong and this Omarosa is dangerous to all of us? Omarosa. That story we heard today and yesterday, that Omarosa may have tapes on everybody she's worked with.
So what we know from that Politico reporting is that the Politico is saying that the White House staffers are terrified of what tape Omarosa may be about to reveal next. And we saw this from Katrina Pearson just this week. On Monday, she was on Fox News saying she never had a conversation or a conference call discussing whether or not the president used the N-word. On Tuesday, Omarosa went on CBS and dropped a tape of Katrina Pearson discussing whether the president used the N-word. And Katrina Pearson herself saying he did it. He's just embarrassed by it. On Wednesday, she had to go back on Fox News to try and defend herself, and it wasn't very effective. So the idea that she's taping someone like Katrina Pearson, fine, but she's taping John Kelly in the Situation Room. If she's willing to tape the chief of staff in the most sensitive room in the White House, it makes you wonder who else she'd be willing to tape, and especially that communications team, who she had a lot more interactions with than pretty much anyone else. And there's also talk of tapes from Jared and Ivanka, tapes of other Trump family members that are going to potentially come out.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.